This video is a discussion of Module 3, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, and how we're going to use this in the course. If you open that up, you see the famous Start Here page, how to complete Module 3. All these links about root and branch are going to be deleted, so you can ignore these root and branch links. They will not appear in your course. Let's open up Start Here, how to complete Module 3. This is going to be a challenge to explain this because it is a real challenge in the course to help students learn how to read critically, and then write essays in response. These are higher level thinking skills that many students have not had much experience engaging in. But at any rate, let's jump right in. Here are the two learning outcomes that will be accomplished, hopefully, by this module. Students will be able to identify how a racial minority was viewed as an abstraction by the scientific community and media until recent years, as exemplified by the book, and they'll also be able to critique recent reviews of The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. So there's two essay questions that students will be answering at the same time, in other words, on the same day in the same sitting. Essay question 1 contains a number of complicated questions, as does essay question 2. But the heart of the question for question 1 is explain the various ways in which both the scientific community and the media are guilty of having viewed Henrietta and her family as abstractions. That's really the heart of the question. Let me just boldface that so that you focus on that. If you can't accomplish the other questions that are part of this overarching question, essay question number 1, it's important that you at least tackle this one, that you at least get the students to engage in this one. And the second question points out that Henrietta's story has been viewed differently at different times. And so the question is, how do you think public interpretation might have been different if the story had been published at the time of Henrietta's death? But the more important question is whether or not it's appropriate to interpret the story as one of race and racism. In other words, was the treatment of Henrietta Lacks just another example of race and racism? Or is it more ambiguous? Is it more complicated than that? Are the times in which people write responsible for the verdict that they give on Henrietta Lacks? And that's a difficult question, but running through the book is a thread which treats that question over and over again. Also, you may want to discuss these questions when you get to the book, and you probably should reference the book from time to time before you get to week 10. Once again, if you don't do that, students may never pick up the book. But if you reference the book in Class 1 and Class 2 and Class 4 and so on, students will know that they need to start reading the book. They need to know what an IRB is, for example. They need to answer specific questions. And if they can do that, they're well on their way to tackling the larger questions that they need to answer with their essays. Now, one of the assignments that's connected with this is Voice Thread. Voice Thread is simply a discussion forum which takes place through voice, through audio recordings. Students leave a comment, but instead of leaving a comment with text, as on a discussion board, they recite their response out loud on a voice thread, which is a special web page where they can leave their voice. Now, this is going to be a challenge for students because students don't like to be heard. They don't like to have their voice recorded and listened to by other people. And we can use that to our advantage because Since students don't like it, they're probably going to work harder to sound more intelligent than they might work in leaving a text comment that they think nobody is actually going to read. So this assignment helps the student know how to leave a voice thread, and it gives them the responsibility of reviewing a particular review on the Henrietta Lacks book and leaving a voice comment in critique of a particular claim or assertion made by the reviewer in the one review to which each student is assigned. Students are assigned to different reviews in the voice thread, and you might have 5 or 6 students assigned to the same review. That way, you're only going to have 5 or 6 comments on the same review. This is a preparation for them to answer the essay questions, to think critically, to become more engaged in the book. And in so doing, they should do a better job of it when they actually write the essay. The essay is one of the learning outcomes for the course, and it's very important that they do this effectively. It's also a major part of their grade for the course. And there's a rubric for the essay. So let's take a look at the rubric. You can download it. They can download it. And so what this does is it balances the challenging nature of the assignment. By that I mean, although this seems like an impossibly complicated question for students to answer, the rubric points them in the right direction. The rubric is like a crutch which helps them know exactly what they need to do, not exactly what they need to say, but exactly what they need to do to answer the question to the extent that they will get the grade that they want. Hopefully they'll want an A. But if they want an A, they're going to have to give 3 clear and correct examples of the scientific community and media viewing or treating Henrietta Lacks and her family as abstractions. One example will be of the scientific community. One example will be of the media. They will need to make clear the consequences of this perspective. A clear, correct statement will include showing how Skloot treated the Lacks family differently, that is, not as an abstraction. They will do so with complete sentences and grammatical errors that are few or non-existent. So the students know exactly what they have to do to answer this to A quality. The question is whether they will do it or not. Now, question number 2 is also very complicated at first glance, but basically the first sentence sums up the question. Many viewed it as a story of race and racism when it appeared in 1976. Obviously, if the story had come out in 1951, very few people would have cared. Another illustration of how different times are. Now, how should the Lacks story be perceived? And is it in any way inconsistent or hypocritical to criticize the scientific community and media as guilty for treating the Lacks families as abstractions and then turn around and say that we should view these people sympathetically, that is, the media and the scientific community sympathetically, given the nature of their times? So the rubric is something you need to get through to students very, very much. The whole purpose of this assignment is not to give students the answers to the question, but to make them come up with the answers themselves. I'm not sure there are any prescribed answers, but the rubric points them in the direction of how to answer the question. It does not give them the answer itself. So this is something you will need to go over with students a lot. And here are the performance targets for the assessment. In other words, this is what we want the course to achieve. Not what we want the students to achieve, but what we want the course to achieve in order to get a proper course assessment.